Welcome everyone to Afros and Audio Podcast Creative Kickback with Georgie from the Black Pod Awards. Welcome.
Thank you. Thank
Thank
you
you
for
for
having
joining.
me.
All right. So my first introduction to you was from a mutual contact, and so in your immediate email you have your TED Talk, the TED Talk X, and that was my first introduction to you, getting to know who you are and what you stand for. And so, when did you do that TED Talk X? How did that opportunity come about for you?
Yeah, so I did that talk last October. Funny story, we had to re-record in December, but it was the first official version of the talk was in October. And I got the opportunity because I went searching for it. So I knew I wanted to do like a TED Talk, TEDx Talk. And so I started searching in the summertime, like end of spring, early summer. So like May, June, I started searching on the TED.com website for different TEDx programs that were happening locally that I could apply for. And then so, I was applying for like Farmingdale because I live out in Long Island, and I applied for a few in New Jersey, and I saw the one that was TEDx Long Island City. And the organizer, I was just like, whoa, I actually know him. So I was just like, I'm still gonna apply, like do a regular application. And a few weeks later after applying, they actually ended up changing the date. So the date was supposed to originally be like early fall, so like September-ish, and or like August, September, and then they changed it to later down in the fall. And then I was one of the few people that were selected to do a TEDx talk, so that was like really exciting. And so I prepped, I practiced, I did it in front of like everybody that I knew, like practice, and then went on and did it live.
Okay, that's awesome. That's awesome, and congratulations. Not everyone can have a TED Talk underneath their belt and on their resume. So definitely congratulations for that. It was very enlightening, and
Thank
again,
you.
it was a good way to get to know who you are and what you stand for. So one of the things you spoke about in that talk was about being a serial entrepreneur,
Mm-hmm.
and that means many things to different people. I know for a lot of people it was a liberating idea that I can have all of these ideas, all of these concepts and things I want to create, but the old concept is that I don't know what I'm doing, or I'm confused, or I don't know what I like, right? And so it almost had a shame and a guilt to being a serial entrepreneur. So now having those words to use and be able to use for ourselves is a very liberating thing. So I wanted to know from you specifically, how did you come about to deciding that, okay, that's what I am, and also what it specifically means for you.
Yeah, so being a serial entrepreneur, I realized like after a while, like I wasn't the person that just had like ideas. Like my passion lived within like executing the ideas. It wasn't just, oh, I have an idea, cool, that, or I have really good ideas, because a lot of my ideas are crappy. So a few of them are good, but a lot of them just are crappy. I test them, it works, it doesn't work. But what I did really love was the execution part of it. So where, whether it was my idea or somebody else's idea, I loved going into an idea and bringing it to life. I love figuring it out, making it work, using sticks and stones to build platforms, apps, brands, idea, like really executing was like my passion. And so as a serial entrepreneur, like what that allows me to do, and like that title allows me to say, is like, because I'm hopping between a lot of different companies or different brands, doesn't mean that I don't know what I'm doing. It just means like that that is what I'm doing. Like that is my purpose to have, and I was on like another show and I heard another term that really spoke to me was portfolio career. So, I have multiple things in my arsenal, and like my act, like who I am as a person is just a doer. And like wherever I show up, whatever field that's in, whatever industry, whatever theme or topic, like my role in it all is to be the person to like to take action.
That's awesome. That's awesome. Yeah, again, it's one of those things that when you understand who you are and what your purpose is, and how you're able to, like, your superpower inside of any aspect of building a business or creating out of your ideas. I just thought that is such a liberating term, such a good way to acknowledge who you are, Um, and so I was happy to hear that in your talk. And again, it's just providing that possibility for others. That's the biggest thing for me. So speaking of that, this is going to kind of go between Black Pod Awards, which you have founded, as well as getting to know you, because that's important. It's very important for people to know who the person is behind things, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so, speaking of your ability to execute and have an idea, you've spoken about it before, and some people may not know that the idea for Black Pod Awards came from a tweet, and that pretty much sparked that idea. And so we want to shout out Tracy Clayton at Brokey McPoverty, and so who had that tweet just said simply, let's create a Black Podcast Award, and you took it on. So I'm sure you've seen a lot of tweets with a lot of different ideas. So why did this specifically resonate for you?
Yeah, so at the point I had just been podcasting for barely a year. Like, I launched my podcast last year in 2019, January, and it wasn't even supposed to be a podcast. It was supposed to be a web series that I was interviewing entrepreneurs. I was trying to launch my, grow and magnify like my YouTube channel. And so one of the guests that I had, she is Mickey Brown from Gifted Sounds, which is a podcast network, another Black podcast network actually. And she's just like, why don't you turn this into a podcast? I'm like, I could sit down and figure out how to do that, but I really like being on video. That gives me energy. I want to see people, not just talk to them. And she's just like, well, you could still take the audio from it and put it in a podcast. I was like, and she's like, join our network. Broke down to me what it looks like, what the processes are, what the costs are. And I was like, okay. Like, the fact that I don't have to like micromanage this, you guys have been doing podcasts forever. Like, okay, let's do it. So we then worked together and we launched, the web series came out and then the podcast came out, and the podcast got a lot more traction than the web series. I still have videos on YouTube that have like 2 views, but the doing it as a video allowed me to get the content out there. But the content was, it seems to be was meant to be in audio format. Like, that's how people best receive it. And so, it works for me. I still record them. I still have it on YouTube, but I, also have the podcast. So that's where I started my podcast. So I was, and I was really excited. And so I started learning more about like podcasting as an industry, Black podcasters all together. And, just as an avid advocate for the Black community, which is my community, I was like, we need to have more safe spaces. Like, a lot of my startups, a lot of my projects, a lot of my businesses are rooted in how can I help advance the Black community as a whole, Black culture. I am also Jamaican, so Caribbean culture. Like, how can I bring us more to these different spaces and show up 100% ourselves? And, it's rooted slightly in like a selfish need to have a space where I don't have to be like the outlier. I don't have to be awkward, right? Like, so, and when I say that, it's, a lot of the spaces that I have been in, I'm either the only Black woman, the only woman, the youngest person in the room, the only mother. So there's like all these spaces that I have to kind of have multiple faces, and I just want to show up as Georgie. And so the more, mainstream, the more recognized it is that there are other people out here like this, and just, creating these spaces. I could just walk into a room and just be Georgie versus like, oh, I have to code switch, I have to do this, I have to do that. And so, I wanted to be a part of these spaces. So when I saw that tweet, I was just like, oh, an opportunity to really make another space that I could just feel normal in versus like feeling, because I did have my insecurities. Most of the podcasts that I did listen to prior, the majority were white male, and then also a few white women, and I had like a very small percentage of Black female podcasters that I listened to. And I was like, how can we highlight? And then I slowly started realizing there's hundreds and thousands of Black podcasters. And so I was just like, if I'm Miss Advocate and don't know how else is the other person sitting next to me that's not in the field or around this stuff supposed to know? So having the awards is not only to celebrate the Black podcasters out there, but also to gain more exposure that there are Black podcasters out there producing amazing content on a variety of different topics. We have over 15 different topics that people could submit, and we had to chop that, we ended up with I think 20, and we had to chop that down from like 30 to 40 different topics, because there's horror, mystery, fiction, love, finances, like the same, all the categories on Spotify, Apple. There are Black podcasters in every single realm.
Yeah, that's super important, and obviously that's the reason for Afros and Audio, the festival itself, is to be able to look around the room and see us representing all of these different ways in which we show up in the world, that we are represented in the world, and provide that platform, like you said, where there isn't a need to feel othered inside of a space, or that imposter syndrome where the belonging in a space comes up for us when it and we've navigated it for years. It's not an issue, but it's just nice. It's a nice to have when you are able to see yourself and be with your own community. What is your short-term goal for Black Pod Awards?
Short-term goal is to get applications, and right after that have the award show. So we had a pretty tight timeline because folks are, why don't we do this next year? So I'm a big believer in MVP, just like getting it out there, getting that first version off the ground. So we have a bunch of applications already in, a lot started, which I'm hoping people are going to fill out before the deadline. And then we have the actual show happening on September 27th this year. So from start to finish, the idea was in February, the event is in September. That's like 8 months. And so we really wanted to bring it to life this first year, just to see what could happen, just get it out there. So that's definitely the short term, get applications and then get butts and virtual seats for the live event on the 27th.
Okay, awesome. And so you have created different organizations. You have Illicit Mind and Caribbeans in Tech, right? And you spoke about this again on your TED Talk about how it grows.
Mm-hmm.
And so even speaking about your short-term vision of this Black Pod Awards, and understanding that it does take time for people to understand what you guys are about, what this is going to look like. I can speak for us having the first event last year, that we had people who it's wanted and needed in the community, first of all. So people are going to gravitate to it. However, if you're new to the scene, people need to trust you. People need to know what you're in it for. People want to, just really gain. It's a lot to be said about the first supporters, because there's a lot of people that just sit out on the sidelines waiting for that first event to occur before they jump in.
Absolutely.
So you have experience with how something can grow, right? And so what are your thoughts about it in this very moment right now, where I know, just knowing from the festival last year, what it takes to make something like this occur, and also not be discouraged by people's seemingly lack of participation or attendance in this moment?
Yeah, so because again, like, I'm so action focused, and this is like my too many times around the rodeo, like, I know it's not gonna be the numbers that we might want, but the main goal, like the key to it all, is just having it happen. Once people see that it's happened, everything else is just butterflies, and not fully butterflies and rainbow, but it's then easier. And so that's why we really wanted to get the first version out the way, right? The first, as they say, like, I'm in the tech field, so it's just like, you want to get like the ugly, broken, first crazy looking version out, so you have 1.0, so that way when 2.0 comes out, they're like, oh, look at you improving and looking nice and having money to do things. And so I understand it's not going to be this crazy big thing, and most of the press is going to come after it happens. Most of the people that are going to want to know when is the next one is going to come after it happens. And so just really pacing ourselves and just understanding, like, if we get 100 applications and 50 people show up to the show, we're successful. If we get 10 applications and 2 people show up to the show, we are successful. And so just making sure that it happens is the key thing. And we've been really grateful to have some amazing partners, and people supporting us, like you guys here at Afros and Audios. Folks are making introductions, because it's not only us that wants to see this happen, it's everybody in the community. And I tell this to the team of leads that are co-producing this with me. It's like, it's just about making it happen, right? I tell them all the time, like, I am like this right now, the Black Podcast Award has had one of the most supports that I've ever seen anything in like this such an early stage have because it's just so needed. So it clicked instantly with many people. And I don't think of this as my award show. Like this is, they'll tell me, oh, Georgie, the founder, executive director. I'm like, I'm just the person that said, let's go. All right. And you guys are the mechanics. You guys are the engineers. You guys are the creators. You guys are the innovators. The people applying, you guys, this is y'all awards. Like I just was the person that said, let's go do it. I drove the car, but you guys are the band that's going to play at the show. And so letting them know, like, this belongs to the community and it doesn't need me to head it. It just so happens like that at the time, like that was what was necessary. But everyone else on the team has more podcasting experience than me, has been listening, making, building, creating longer than me. And so just really taking that and say, listen, you guys are all smarter than me and I want you to put in the work in your proper fields and be great, and like let's make this all happen together.
Nice. Again, I get it. I definitely get it. It resonates with me as well. And so it's super dope that you came in it with that mindset, right? That it's about the community, it's about the people that support and get this going with you. There's a lot of not of founders or leaders that take it all on their own. I'm guilty of it. And that's really not the way to make some really good stuff happen. It's really about bringing in the community. And so it's awesome that you, obviously with your own experience from the past, and then bring that forward into this iteration of your creativity. It's really, really dope. And I'm happy to hear you bring that to the Black Pod Awards. What is your long-term vision for the Black Pod Awards?
Yeah, so the long-term vision is to definitely have this feel like, the Grammys, right? the Emmys, like just be a staple in the award community of awarding Black podcasters for the work that they're putting into this industry over and over again, as well as like just making sure that there is consistent exposure and awareness of the content being put out by black creators. So I don't want anyone to be in a room to say, okay, what's a Black podcaster that talks about finance? Like there should be an instant answer to that question, and just really be clear on like what resources that are out there for Black podcasters. So I see us, not recreating the wheel, but being a place where people could come and find resources. There are so many different lists, there's so many different networks, there's so many different collectives that a lot of people literally just don't know about. And so if we get a lot of like the press or like the exposure, I want to then shine light on everything else that's there. I don't want to, create another directory. I want to point you into the 15, 20 directories that are already there. I don't want to create another podcast network. I'm going to point you into the 15, 30, 40 podcast networks that already exist. So just really amplifying the resources that currently exist, whether it's the podcasters, the networks, there's like streaming service, hosting services, making those connections so that way we could then get that exposure as well as turn it into income. Because I've seen a lot of big brands partner with certain creatives, and then they start like a podcast on their network or for their company, and then or they're sponsoring things, and it's just not adding up. There's so many different creators out there that have been doing this for years and years and years, and they haven't monetized. So like, how can we make sure that happens? How can we make sure that their content gets listened to and gets into the right hands? Because there's a lot of different, information that's being spread. There's stories being told, there's lives being changed, and how can we continue to make that happen? So that's a long-term goal, is to positively impact the exposure as well as the careers of Black podcasters, and really make them, there are a lot of, like they say, starving artists in the Black podcasting field. So like, how can we, get them fed? Like, how can we all work together to make that happen?
That's great. That's great. So, and as we close this conversation up, a lot of people, it's becoming more and more clear, and especially for me, that a lot of times people who create community are actually seeking community, right? And really wanting to find those people that are doing what we do, that have the same or greater mind than we have.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's what's beautiful about what you just said with the Black Pod Awards, and obviously what we are doing and why we resonated with what you guys are doing, because it is so important to add the value, to create the equity, to make sure that we get to have what is there for us to have. There's money on the table. There's opportunities to be had. And what we realize is that there's a lack of access of that specific information for people to know that there is money on the table and opportunities to be had. And so those are the gaps that we're trying to bridge. And I know just from, what you said and what you're creating, it's the same. So what are some of the ways right now, because there's a deadline coming up, and I want you to speak about that, and right now how people can get involved and make sure that their presence is felt at the Black Pod Awards this year?
Yeah, so the first way is to definitely apply. By the time this episode is released, it should announce that the applications were originally closing August 1st, but we've extended it to August 5th. So you do have time to apply. If you're watching this before August 5th, please apply. If you're watching this after August 5th and you missed the application deadline, don't worry. We have the award show that'll be happening. So head on over to blackpodawards.com and subscribe to our newsletter, because that's where we're going to be releasing, where we're going to be doing the live stream of the actual event on September 27th. And then after that, it's just really celebrating, and we're going to do like a vote for the fan favorite category. So just really sign up for our newsletter. That's the main place that you'll get information, as well as like on social media at Black Pod Awards on everything. So Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, and that's the best way to reach us. This is just year one. We're definitely going to be having a year 2, 3, and hopefully as long as we can make this go. So even if you didn't get to apply this year, or you just started a podcast, that's totally fine. Now this is a resource, and that you can come to us for resources. So just get on our newsletter, follow us on social, and stay tuned for a lot of more amazing things that's going to be happening with the Black Pod Awards.
Awesome. And what can people expect to experience from this first Black Pod Awards show?
So we're planning now. The applications are about to close. We're starting to plan like what the actual show is going to look like. We've been planning it for a while, but applications came first. Like if there's no applications, there's no awards. Right. And so we're gonna have the Black National Anthem. We're gonna have different hosts, and the amazing thing is because of having it fully online. So before COVID, we were thinking about having it fully online because there's no funds to have no big award gala. But now, that allows us to have different hosts and different speakers and different announcers. So we're going to have some pretty well-known folks, as well as some like underground folks that are coming up that'll be announcing. And it's literally going to feel like an amazing party, a function of community, collaboration, and excitement, and a celebration of Black podcasters. So that's what you can expect. And we have some live performances happening, so it's gonna be exciting, and I'm super excited to see it happen. I most of my experience has been in events, because again, community, you got to come together and do stuff together. So events really do make me light up, and I'm super excited for you guys all to see what we're putting together for the Black Pod Awards event.
Awesome. I'm super excited to be a part of it and to witness it. Because I know it's just the beginning, and as always, we definitely are supporters. I'm glad that you guys reached out. I'm glad that we were able to connect and really support something that is so much wanted and needed in our community of Black podcast creatives. Thank you so much for being here and speaking about yourself and the Black Pod Awards, and we're looking forward to it.
Thank you so much for having me.